ultimately with real estate, my opinion is you want to go to sleep at night and you want to make money.
Yeah.
So when you wake up in the morning, you've made money. And in real estate, you can do that.
Yeah. So making money while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Making money while you're sleeping.
Making money while you're sleeping.
There's like nothing.
I mean, how great is that?
Right, right. All right, welcome in. This is going to be the first ever episode of Create Great Real Estate. I'm Chris P. Austin, your host, and today we have a very special guest who's joining us on our first episode. This is Jill Reeder. She has been doing real estate for over 20 years. She has been recently named to the Real Estate Trends Top 1,600 Real Estate Agents in the nation, and she's a top 6 seller of real estate in terms of rentals around the nation. So no better person to start this off with and start to learn from for those of you out there who have interest in real estate. So today's topic and what we're jumping right into is why would you invest in real estate? So there's so many people who we see right at the local job, at the local market, who are already invested in a lot of things, who have no investment in anything. But real estate is a topic that a lot of people talk about, but maybe not everybody has a great amount of knowledge on. So that's what we're gonna educate them on today.
Okay.
All right, so intro, I think a lot of our listeners, as it pertains to me, as it pertains to you, they're going to want to know why they should listen to us. So for you, why should they listen to you when it comes to real estate?
Well, I've been an agent for an extended period of time. I have diversified myself in many different areas. I work with both buyers and sellers, so I have a lot of history knowing the mentality on both sides.
Okay. And for myself, I'm a person who creates all of the content that I do around business, relationships, sports. So for me, the business side of things, which includes real estate at this point in my life, I've just recently in the last 5 years developed a really strong interest in real estate, what it can do for an individual, what it can do for a family, how the economy runs essentially on real estate, how land is owned, how land is developed, all that sort of thing. But again, we want to start to extract your expertise and try to figure out from you some of the answers to these questions that we've actually been getting from our audience at multiple angles on this first episode. So what do you think is the main benefit of real estate?
I think it's a tangible asset. I think that typically, historically, people tend to invest their money in stocks or bonds, and those are great investments, but real estate is a tangible asset. There's only so much of it. Land will run out eventually.
Yeah.
You can keep it long term and you can use it for yourself. You can use it as an investment property. There's a lot of diversity in real estate.
Yeah. What percentage of people would you say? Because in my experience, I see that a lot of people are trying to find shelter, right? That's one of the primary needs we have in life. But very few people seem to own, that we come across on a daily basis. And it depends on the area you live in, but there's so many people renting, and a lot of times the argument is, should you rent, should you own? If you want to own, how do you go about owning? Is renting cheaper? Is owning cheaper in the long run? But main benefit of real estate, in my opinion, is for people to be able to have a house that they can live in, or a house that they can have other people live in and create income for them. But ownership always gives you the opportunity to have something at the end of the day. So for some people, it's real estate. Some people it's retirement accounts. Other people prefer, like you said, stocks and bonds. But I think when a person invests in real estate, they'll always know they have something, as opposed to ending up in a situation where they have nothing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I don't know how I could ever afford to invest in real estate.
Right.
And really, there's a lot of different opportunities to invest if you have a lot of money or if you don't have a lot of money. There's a lot of great programs out there that you can tap into. If you have a lot of money and you're looking for diversification, it's a great way to make money on your money. I mean, ultimately with real estate, my opinion is you want to go to sleep at night and you want to make money.
Yeah.
So when you wake up in the morning, you've made money. And in real estate, you can do that.
Yeah. So making money while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Making money while you're sleeping.
Making money while you're sleeping.
There's like nothing.
I mean,
better
how
than
great
that.
is that?
Right. So the $1 million question is, if you have low to no money, or right now you don't necessarily have a budget, you're just living paycheck to paycheck, or you don't think you can afford it because you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, and you see these people talking about the stuff that just confuses you. So thus far, you've just stayed away from it. How does a person with low to no money go about getting started in real estate?
Well, there's several ways that you can do it. One, I would try to find somebody that you could partner with, someone who may have money and you could manage the property. So you can make some kind of partnership that way and work it out. Not everybody has to have the money. There's FHA loans, there are VA loans.
What are those for our audience? What's FHA, what's VA?
Low income loans, veteran loans with little money down. One of the problems that people feel like they can't afford to invest in real estate is because they have to come up with a large down payment.
Right.
With the FHA loans and VA loans, you don't have to come up with a large down payment. Sometimes you don't even have to come up with a down payment at all. There's a lot of really good programs to tap into for lower income people.
So for loans, you can have the typical, you always hear about, the 20% down, 30-year loan for homes. You hear about that a lot. But a lot of people don't know you can get a 20% loan, you can get a 15, a 10, a 5 even, and there's some people who go bigger, like 40%, 50%. Why would a person with low to no income choose one of those different loans, and how do they go about making that decision? Like, what tilts that scale?
I think that if you want to get involved in real estate and you feel like you want a home, that someplace that you can put some roots down and have a long-term goal of making your investment work for you, then I think it's worth looking into properties where they're offering those kind of loans, or programs where they're offering those kind of loans. Obviously, the more money you put down on a property, the less your mortgage payment's going to be. So that's the whole conundrum, is that if you have the money to put down 50%, then that takes down your payments, which is going to make you more money on the front end versus the back end, where you're not putting as much money down and it's taking you longer time to pay off your mortgage, but ultimately you still own something.
Right, so would you agree or disagree with this? The advice that I would give somebody who has low to no income, trying to get involved in real estate, is pull all the money that you have, whether you're talking savings account, checking account, cash, any kind of investments like retirement or whatever the case, and you pull it all. What's that final number? And from there, you break it into 25% 4 times. So you go, this 25% is going to be for my retirement. This 25% is going to be for my life, trying to afford my life as it is now. This 25% is going to be for emergencies. This 25% I could start to put towards real estate. So maybe somebody low to no income, we're talking they have $1,000 extra, $2,000 extra. How might somebody low to no income get involved in real estate that way? Some things you talked about, getting involved in an investor. I want to know more about how that might work for somebody who has like $1,000 or $2,000. How can they turn that into something bigger and be able to get themselves some real estate? Or if somebody feels like, hey, I live in this certain area and real estate in my area is too expensive, that's why I rent, or real estate in my area is not great and I don't see the value of it rising, so how would I be able to get out of this area? How does that person solve that problem? For me, the way they solve that problem is, like you said, finding another investor who they can add value to and they get value in return. So for example, if they're a person, hey, I've got $2,000, but I do a service. I fix cars, or I will hook up your whole house, or whatever. And over time, I want to develop a partnership where you help me get involved in real estate. I'll hook up your house for this long, and you'll put this much down, and then I'll pay you back to be able to do that. That's a way that I've seen people do it. What other ways could it be done?
Well, if you live in a certain area that's too expensive, who's to say that you can't invest in an area that's less expensive,
Right.
rent out the property, and start building your portfolio that way?
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to move from the area that you want to live that you can't afford. You can purchase property outside of your circle start your investment and build up from there.
Yeah.
It's really about if you're looking at real estate from a long-term perspective, which I feel it's really important to look at real estate as a long-term investment goal. There's a lot of people that like to do 1031 exchanges. So you live in a property for a certain number of years, and then you can sell it and you can take the proceeds, you make less taxes that you're gonna have to pay, and you roll it into the next property. So I think there's a lot of different ways to diversify yourself and make money in real estate with money in your pocket that you've saved, with a partner, or money that you've had for years and you're just looking to diversify it.
Yeah, or borrowing. So people now are getting these opportunities where if you're in a certain minority, or if you're in a certain gender, if you're in a certain age, the government will give you money to get you started. But what people got to be careful about with that is being able to make it up on the back end, right? So many people get themselves in hot water because they go in, oh, hey, here's what I'm gonna do, and then there's no way to like pay it off long term. So then they're in trouble with the bank. So I think for people to low to no income, if I were to give them a couple hit points that are important. One, don't feel like you have to live where you're investing. That's A, you'd say. Okay, so if a person likes their area, say you've chosen because of the school district, or you've chosen because of the weather, you've chosen because it's low crime, you can buy an average house or an average property, even commercial, on a not so great area, and then allow it to rise as you put new finishes on it. Or you can buy a really good looking place in a pretty good looking area, and then just allow it to naturally grow over time. So what would be some of the places you would recommend a person with low to no income to buy near? So for example, should they buy in the city or suburbs? Should they buy near the beach or near the mountains? Should they buy a place that has 5 stories, a place that has 1 story? Why would you advise people low to no income, and how would you advise them?
Well, I think that you have to decide what the property that you're purchasing is going to be for you. Is it going to be a property that you're going to live in, or is it going to be an investment property? If you're looking into an investment property, there are specific things that I think are important for an investor to understand if you're purchasing in an area that's not what you're familiar with. One, I think you have to look at the school systems. That's very important for people that are purchasing property and when they're moving into neighborhoods. I think also you have to look at historically, have homes in that area gone up in value? Obviously that's important. If you're using that as an investment property, what is the rental market like? Are rental markets high? Do people always need rentals in the area, or are there a multitude of vacancies in the area and you don't want that either? I think right now, one of the things that I've been thinking about is that I think investing around colleges is a really smart investment.
Always new students.
There's always new students. Most students live in a dorm for the first year or two, and then they want to move out with a group of friends their junior and senior year. A lot of schools are now offering master's programs that add an additional year. So my personal opinion and what I'm looking to invest in right now is properties that are around colleges that have a low rental capacity and need more rentals for students.
Okay. All right. So if you're still listening, if you're still watching, this is a great opportunity for you. If you like what you're hearing, hit the subscribe button down below. Make sure you drop in the comments some things that you're hearing, some things that maybe you want to know on future Create Great Real Estate podcasts. And then we're going to kick over to an interesting video that we think you should see right now. Shoulders, knees, toes, knees, shoulders, insoles.
Yes!
All right, winners. Let us go. Time to train. All right, we're back after seeing that. So we just recently talked about if you're a person with low to no income, how would you go about even starting real estate? How do you get in? What are some of the decisions you should think about? And Jill filled us in on some ones that are really good. The next thing we're going to talk about is if you're a person who has means, if you're a person who has a good amount of money, how can you get yourself involved in real estate to start having your money work for you or make money for you? So get us started on that.
again, I think it goes back to what's the purpose of the investment that you're buying. So again, are you buying a home for yourself, or are you looking to buy investment properties? If you're looking to buy investment properties, do you want to diversify across the country? Do you want to buy one big property? Do you want to buy 10 smaller, less expensive properties? Do you want to get involved in managing people? It's really like, there are a lot of things that you have to think about, but if you have the ability to invest a significant amount of money, then your choices are obviously bigger.
Yeah. So if you're a person who has a lot of money, some of the decisions you're saying they should make, which I would agree with, are do you want to buy residential versus commercial? Because with residential, you're dealing with humans, you're dealing with potentially some turnover in and out depending on the area you're in. With commercial, a little bit more straightforward it tends to be. Like, hey, here's the property, you're going to be responsible for everything that happens there. And what you plan to do with it long term. Is it a place that you currently live that maybe you get in another place on a 1031 exchange, or just because you get in another place and then you're going to rent that space out and then decide later what you want to do with it? Or is it a place that you have zero plans on ever living in and it's straight up rental, so you're looking for things like you said, college towns, towns with big attractions? Like, do they have hiking that people really like to go to? Is there certain times of year that they're very heavily populated, like Hawaii? We know they always have people going and looking for rentals. Los Angeles, people popping in and out of towns for games, sporting events, things like that. So making the decision on things like that. But then another one that a lot of people don't think about is cost of living in the area. So if you're a person who has a good amount of money, not necessarily choosing New York, California, Hawaii, places where real estate is going to be pretty expensive, and it comes with tack-ons. For those of you who don't know yet, like, it's not just price of property, it's also property taxes, it's also insurance, it's also what are the rules and regulations. Are there HOA fees? Is it a house versus a townhome versus a condo versus a duplex versus an apartment complex? So educating yourself on these things is huge, but that's why you listen to Create Great Real Estate, so you can get educated. So if you were to give somebody who had a lot of money top 3 things to think about, what would they be?
What kind of investment are you looking for, number one? How much do you want to spread yourself to be responsible for one or multiple properties?
Okay.
And what kind of term are you thinking about holding on to these properties?
Yeah. So for the second one you said, if there's somebody with, let's go like high, top of the food chain. There's somebody who wants to buy a place that's $20 million. And if they have a $20 million place that they're going to live in, they're paying it off, so they'll eventually own that. There's a lot of expenses that come with a $20 million place. Versus a person who says, I've got $20 million, but I'm going to buy 100 different places with $20 million. And that's like diversification of the portfolio, right? So if I have a house in, let's say, every state, say somebody says, I want a house in every single state in the United States. I've got Hawaii, I've got California, I've got New York, I've got Iowa, all these places. So let's say Hawaii has a tragedy, like it has recently, and your place, big issue, goes up in flames, your insurance is trying to kick it back, but you are having to pay the note on that unless you bought it in cash at an extended amount of time. But you've now got 99 other properties that could potentially still be doing your thing. But managing all that is time, right? You might have to hire other people, right?
Because you might have to hire a management company, because what are you going to do? Go skipping state to state every time something happens?
Right.
I mean, things happen in houses.
Right. Versus the all your eggs in one basket kind of concept. I'm going to buy 1 or 2 really large pieces, that are going to hold my whole portfolio. But you hope nothing happens. If something happens, you're sunk for a little while in that situation. So basically, you're saying it comes down to the capacity a person decides to take on.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to take on the diversification, having a bunch, or if you'd rather keep it simple but a little more risky and have 1 or 2, that's the thing for sure. Okay, so when is it time to invest? When is it time to wait? So let's say somebody's listening to this, they're like, oh, I'm feeling fired up, real estate, I'm going to do my research, I'm listening, I'm going to go for it. When is the time to say, hey, now's the time? And when is the time to pump the brakes, sit back, do a little bit more research, wait for the market to do X, Y, or Z? What do you think?
Well, I think right now is a really interesting time in real estate, because we've had years of very low interest rates, and the market has skyrocketed because of that.
Right.
Now the interest rates have risen in the last 6 or 7 months, and a lot of people are taking a stand and saying, I'm going to wait for a while.
Right.
What people have to realize is that we're still at a historic low. Trajecting the last 20 plus years, we are still at historically low interest rates than we ever have before.
So for people who don't know a lot about interest rates, what is low, what is high?
Low is 3%. Interest rates have been as high as 15%, 15%. And so what's holding people back right now is this sort of like window of like, well, if I was paying this much, then my payment would have been this. But now with interest rates, I can only afford a house if this is how much I want to pay.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that if you're waiting now, I think one of the benefits of purchasing now is that there was a time for the last several years where sellers were in control of the market.
Yes, yes.
And now I'm seeing that buyers are not, it's not turning, because I think that sellers are still feeling like my property is very valuable, but I feel like there's much more of a negotiation happening than there has been in the last several years between buyers and sellers.
Okay, so what you're saying is previously buyers were saying, here's my number, take it or leave it, and now buyers state their number, sellers come in and say, I'll pay this, and buyers say, well, I'm willing to go back and forth with you a little bit, as opposed to being a hard line.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing sellers offering carrybacks because of interest rates. So a seller, my opinion is most people that are selling right now need to sell.
Right.
Because a seller who's in a 3 or 4% loan,
They're not
where are they going to
sell
go,
to get-
right? Where are they going to go? So I think that alone sort of makes it more of like an open playing field right now. I feel like as a buyer, I'm not saying you can like lowball a seller, but I'm saying that I feel like the negotiation is more realistic than it's been in the last several years. And that's why, even though people are saying interest rates are too high, there's a lot of opportunity to purchase right now. And if you're purchasing a property for the long term, if you get into a rate that's too high for you right now, suck it up for the next year, because rates are going to go down again.
Right.
And buy the property that you want. Why wait? Continue to pay rent that you're not making any money on, and maybe you can get a better deal now while rates are high than when rates start going lower, and then the trend might be different with sellers.
Right. So before I give my stance on this, I'm going to ask you the question that a lot of people would ask to a real estate agent behind the scenes, but not to their face. So most people would say, okay, well, naturally, a real estate agent is going to say, always buy. A real estate agent is going to say, there's never not a good time to buy. What's your response to the argument that naturally a real estate agent is going to tell somebody to buy while rates are high, as opposed to somebody else in another field, like accounting, or a person who's designed to save money per se, might say, why don't you wait until interest rates come down a little bit? What is the argument, or what is the stance that you put forward to a person that says, well, I have this other person telling me I should wait until rates go down? Why would you say buy now? And you touched on a little bit there, but why would you say buy now versus wait?
Well, I think I kind of just answered the question,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like, why are you waiting?
Right.
Like, why are you waiting? You have money to invest. The stock market is not like going gangbusters now either.
Right.
So instead of just letting your cash sit in an account and make a measly 2%, why not put it in something that's going to bring you some happiness? It could bring you a return on your investment if you're buying an investment property. And if you're looking at it as something that you're going to hold on to for a while, then I think ultimately real estate is the ultimate investment.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is the big thing that a lot of people are going to attach to. It's if somebody has money, which feels like very valuable to them, right? Their cash. They go, if I put it into real estate, it's risky. I don't know what's going to happen, because they haven't done it for a while, right? People who are a little more savvy in real estate, who have the experience, they might feel differently. But somebody who is just starting to stick their toe in the water, to start to get interested, who might have some nervousness, I think that point will be really important for them. Of right now, if you put your money into a regular savings account, what are you making? 1%, maybe 2%.
Maybe
If you put your money in high yield, 4%, maybe 5% in the best situation you can find right now, 5, 6. But real estate not only gives you a potential for a larger return on investment, but it also gives you a present day physical asset. It's not like playing the stock market where your money is basically like going up and down these numbers on a computer and you're checking it during the day. It's not like putting it in a high yield savings account where you can sit there and see that number tick up slowly over time, but it's a physical asset that you can learn to appreciate, you can have as an heirloom, you can have as something to put inside of a trust, you can have as something that carries on for other people to live in eventually. And I think that's the largest thing that I noticed. If you're getting real money in real life, and this is now we have credit cards and swipe right, if you're getting real money cash handed to you, the cash changes hands and another person finds its value. So if I have a $100 bill and I hand it to you, you go, this is valuable, right? But if I swipe a credit card, sometimes we lose the value in it, right? That's why people crank credit cards and then they get in a lot of trouble because the same value isn't there as like handing over a physical asset of like, I've got 200 of these dollars and I'm gonna give 20 to this gas tank, I'm gonna give 10 to this food, I'm gonna give 10 to this whatever. Versus like, oh, you know, it's the card, and you look at the end of the month, you go, shoot, I had 200 and I spent 300 and now what am I gonna do? So real estate, I think it really gives that physical presence.
It's tangible.
Yeah, it gives that physical presence, and that's really important for people who are doing it for the first time, like learning to allocate their money and diversify their portfolio and go, okay, I've got for me, 25% of everything, I've got this 25%, what am I gonna do? Yeah, that's huge. So along with the same thing, when is it time to invest? When is it time to wait? Another question I have for you that I have my personal opinion on is, when you get ready to start investing, how do you decide who to do it with? So you touched on earlier for a person with low to no income, but this could also be for a person who has a really high amount of money. If you decide to go into partnership with somebody, whether that's the other person who's gonna help pay for this property with you, or if it's a real estate agent, or if it's a seller on the other end, like, how do you make your decisions on who to go with? Because real estate's a feel thing a lot, right?
You mean who to go with as far as like, where do you start? Like the
How do you
search?
find an agent? How do you choose an agent? How do you find the location and choose the location? Of course, finding the location, it's research. It's getting online,
Yeah,
it's visiting
you
these
do
places.
online.
But how do you choose a real estate agent? How do you know somebody's gonna like really be in your corner, help you get it done? Of course, Joe Rita's gonna be in your corner and help you get it done. But how would you recommend for other people they find that in their area?
I think you have to start talking to people. I think you have to go on to Zillow and read reviews about agents. I mean, for me, being in the business as long as I've been, most of my business is by referral. And I think that's so important because somebody else has already done the research for you. And then sit down, have an interview with that person, ask them the pertinent questions, see how much knowledge they have, and you know, start doing your own research of like, where would you want to invest? Call your mortgage broker, and if you have a good agent will have several mortgage brokers, and you can say, I have this much to invest and how much can I afford, and then you'll know what this is the price point that I can start looking for houses or apartments or condos or a duplex or an investment property of any kind. So it's a process, but I'm very much all about my gut, and I think that's the most important thing is
Having the feel.
yeah. I think it's a huge investment. I think every time I start an escrow with clients, I always say like, there's going to be a time where it's going to get very emotional, and you know, I'm going to be here and I'm going to guide you through the process, and we'll get through it to the other end. And most of the time, the people that I work with like kind of laugh like, oh, I'm not that way. You've
Sure.
never seen people until you get into a very personal transaction.
Right.
And purchasing a house or an investment, whether you've done it 10 times or never, is a very personal transaction. So you have to really like the person that you're working with, but beyond liking them, you have to trust them.
Yeah, huge. Okay, so Why would you invest in real estate? We got a lot of good questions answered today, starting with if I have low to no money, if I have big money, what should I do? How do I start this process? What are some of the different things I should think about? All those questions are getting answered inside of here. Do you have anything for a person who's going to be a first-time buyer or somebody who's interested where you're like, this is the largest piece of advice I would give that person to utilize in their pursuit of real estate?
I think it's really important that you actually care about the property that you're investing in. I think that you can be very sort of black and white and say like, oh, this is a good deal in an area that I think will be good, but ultimately, because it's a tangible asset, I think it's imperative to believe in the property that you're investing in. That's important to me.
Huge. Okay. So, what I want you to do, jump in the comments section. Even if you've already been in the comments section, I want you to let us know where you're tuning in from, your state, your city, your country. What makes you interested in this podcast, getting all the way to the end? What would you potentially want to see on the next one? Okay, a really big appreciation to you for coming, making this happen. This is exciting. This is going to get a lot of people great information, help them on their journeys, and hopefully it provides some entertainment too. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Chris P. Austin, Create Great Real Estate Podcast. Look in the playlist for other options. Make sure you get in the description. We're going to see you next video. Ciao.